Hey everyone, in today's video I wanted to talk about my journey into vibe coding for the past 6 months. Now, vibe coding has been an absolute boon for someone like me. I have been a solution architect for most of my career. I dabble a lot into AI agents. So with vibe coding, I have been able to build my own agents, agentic platform, built web applications for the backend system of records, which provide the data for the AI agents to consume and provide the answers as it pertains to the CX space. But along the way, I have a few scars to show as well, and I thought I'd share some of the lessons and tips that I picked up in the past 6 months, and hopefully someone who hasn't dabbled into vibe coding, is looking to get into vibe coding, can use these tips. So let's get started. So the first lesson is, no pain, no gain. You have to put in the hours. There is no alternative to, getting your hands dirty, getting your hands on the keyboard. And as part of that, you may have to subscribe to a few, tools. I began my journey with Cursor, which gives you a bunch of free tokens. But then as you start utilizing some of these tokens, then you realize that you need to upgrade. Then I moved on to Bolt.new, which was also very good. Bolt actually now supports Claude code within their environment. And then I've tried Replit. And then finally I've nailed down on my IDE of choice, which is VS Code and Codex extension, and I use the GPT model 5.2. So GPT model 5.2. The next pointer is, before you actually start coding, make sure that you have a very good product requirements document in Markdown format. And I typically start with iterating on ChatGPT. So I'll start prompting ChatGPT to come up with a product requirements document specifically in Markdown format for a web application idea that I have, and it'll give me a whole set of requirements that I need to have, or the coding agent needs to deploy to have a minimally viable product, an MVP. And then you can kind of iterate again from there. But that's your starting point. Before you start any line of code, start with a PRD. The next pointer I have is wiring up your front end to the back end. Now this is something that is in the beginning you are going to have a lot of challenges with, especially if you're using decoupled front end and back end. So in my case, I always use a database as a service like Superbase, and I have synthetic data that I create. So I start by creating my database tables and have some data already in there, seed some data there, and then use that to be reflected on the front end. So you got to tie these things together, and there are many ways to do it. One is MCP. So if you're using Superbase, it allows you to connect your coding assistant into Superbase with MCP. The other way is through APIs, of course. So you'll have to provide the URL and the anonymous key, and that's good enough for you to get started. So I like this decoupled approach with the database, because it allows me to now use the data in the database against multiple AI agents. So in my case, I test different AI agents. I'll be testing an AI agent one day from TalkDesk. I'll be testing an AI agent from OpenAI or 11 Labs. So I can point these agents to my data in database, and it's easily accessible. Table schemas. So always create a file before. This is also something before you start coding. Along with the PRD requirement, you also have your current table schemas provided to the coding assistant. What that does is it gives the coding assistant exactly the idea of how the current tables look like, so it can actually start formulating the UI UX accordingly so that it can display the data the right way. The next one is to always tie your coding assistant to a DevOps platform. Mostly people use GitHub. You may be using Bitbucket. That way your code is always synced, your repos are always synced to the cloud. and whatever changes you make locally are synced up to the cloud right away. So that's something that is a good practice to do. The next thing is to make sure that you use the chat features. Almost all of the coding assistants have a chat feature. And when you use the chat feature, what that allows you to do is to understand what the AI is actually thinking and what kind of changes it's going to make. Which brings me to prompt engineering. Now, prompt engineering, there is no alternative to. You will have to get very good at prompting. So make sure that you are prompting the coding assistant really well, because the better your prompts, the better the code that the agent will generate. It's as simple as that. The next is, as you start getting better and better at vibe coding, try and get an understanding of the project scaffolding, meaning where are the files, which files do what. Get into these files and see what changes AI has made into which file, what components has it created, and what those components really do. This helps you as you develop complex applications to ensure that you are able to debug a problem correctly, because there will be a time that you will end up in a debug loop, and instead of just pasting the error to the agent, it is always good to provide context that, hey, this is a file I believe where the problem is, can you have a look? And that, along with the browser console logs, if you are building a web app or an application that runs on a browser, then those browser console logs, along with the specific file that you believe the error might be coming in from, helps reduce the time that the agent would take to fix the problem. So that's one key thing to keep in mind. Develop an understanding of cores, which is cross-origin resource sharing. This is, again, when your browser is trying to fetch some data from a third-party server, it's a security feature which kind of ensures what resources it's allowed to access. In that process, you will end up deploying some edge functions which is outside of the code. Now, these edge functions can run, they're basically JavaScript codes which handle this core's request, and they are typically deployed in something like Superbase. All right, so those are the lessons that I've learned, and I wish you well in your vibe coding journey. Thanks for watching.